Hey you, I'm Andy Powell. Welcome to the Allcast Podcast. No topic is off the table. I hope you enjoy. The Allcast Podcast is brought to you by Black Flag Hybrid Grappling, Black Flag Jiu-Jitsu in Glendale, Arizona. Upcoming is a Arizona Catch Wrestling Championship, Sunday, March 19th, 2023. And this tournament welcomes all academies and all combat styles to compete under catch wrestling rules. We got MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, submission grappling, freestyle wrestling, folk style wrestling, Greco-Roman, Sambo, Judo, Krav Maga, Pankration, Sumo, Catch as Catch Can, Pro Wrestling, and whatever else you got, you're welcome. If you're near Glendale, Arizona, check out Black Flag Jiu-Jitsu, Black Flag Hybrid Grappling, and go get your learn on. Today's podcast is with Ruben Ruiz. He is an aspiring musician. And just like every single one of us, he's got some things to say. So here's an opportunity to say those things. Hey, Ruben.
What's going on?
Not much, man.
Long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Long time.
Yeah.
What a drive up here.
Yeah, it's nice, huh?
It was, I actually love driving. If I'm going somewhere fun. I mean, I'm having a blast already, so it was a good drive. It was a good drive. It's beautiful out. It was freezing. I stopped to get some gas, and it was 38 degrees out. I'm like, okay, it's a little different than home, but
it's like a 30 or 35 degree difference, probably.
Dude, and it gets cold at night.
Yeah,
like actually cold, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it'll probably get into the teens during the winter, which is pretty cold. Pretty cold for Arizona, at least, for what you're used to.
100%.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's 50 degrees. It's freezing out right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cold. Well, it's that 30 degree difference. Cause if you're in Phoenix and it's like, it's summertime, it's like 115, 120, 110.
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And then at night it drops.
It's a shift. 35
degrees
Total
or something.
Shift.
It's nice at night, but from here to there to here, it's a strong gap.
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, elevation change is a big factor in that, I think.
I was never big on like the elevation thing. I always used to run. I ran in high school, track cross country, and we'd come up here and coaches like, oh, be careful, the elevation, we got to train. And I'm like, it really isn't as crazy as I always thought. I always ran better up here. So
yeah, you didn't get too affected by it? It wasn't harder?
No.
Huh.
Mm-mm.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. You were in cross country, huh? Forget about
that. It was a long time
we
ago.
went to the same school.
We did.
That didn't even register to me until
Ironwood,
now.
man.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Ironwood.
We might have cut that out. Yeah. So, what are you doing these days as far as like music and singing? I know you said you're taking singing lessons. How long?
Yeah, maybe we can cut that out too. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. I was gonna say. I was gonna ask for a sample. Tell me what you got.
I'm a little coarse right now. Get a little nervous.
Okay.
In front of a big crowd. So
yeah, well,
you're a big crowd.
I am big.
That's the funny part. It's okay. Rolling back where I got into these singing lessons. A really special person to me introduced me to this singing studio, and actually went ahead and paid for a couple classes. For me to kind of just try it out, and I was just like, wow, I think there's been something missing as far as my growth in singing. I grew up singing in a musical home. My mom sang and played the piano. My sister sang really well. My dad was not musical at all, so it was just me, my mom, my sister. And, from a young age, my mom made me pick up an instrument. And so I started playing the trumpet. So it was always just like a musical home. And I always enjoyed singing a lot.
Yeah.
And so I kind of really dove into that a lot at a younger age. And I don't know, kind of, as I grew up, I think kind of got a little bit insecure of how I sounded, and kind of also, I think, along with the insecurity of how I thought I sounded and what people were telling me. And of all people, my mom was like, you sound really nasally. you know, and kind of like that Blink-182 vibe, you know, is
Oh,
what
no.
I know. I'm like, gosh, who would have thought this is bad? But
Yeah, the Green Day Blink-182.
oh, that was my jam,
section.
man.
Oh, man.
That was my jam. You
Okay.
know, 7th, 8th grade, I had a little, just, I'm going off topic here, but I had a little IBM radio, and I would plug in the radio, 92.1. 92.1. I forget what it was.
Do it. Go all the
Another
way.
one.
I heard it. Dude, you were there.
I forget what it is. Like, it's 92.1 KFMA. KFMA, I think that's what it was.
Where was that?
In Tucson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Unfortunately.
didn't know
But
that.
yeah,
one.
I was in Tucson. And so I listened to my radio because I grew up in a Christian household, so I wasn't really allowed to listen to secular music or
Yeah.
anything mainstream. You know, it was like the basics, like, you know, good old Carmen, and, you know, I couldn't even think of any other Christian people that were singing at the time. But so I would plug it in and listen to my Green Day, and I listen to, you know, the Killers on there.
The
like, oh
Killers.
man, those were my jams, man. So
Yeah.
anyways, I always grew up singing and did that whole thing, and, you know, I really loved it. I was super passionate about it, and I just never taken any lessons, really. You know, I mean, so it was always like this like cap of like where I felt like if I was really good, like I could sing this well, but like I could never get there. And so anyways, this person, like I said, was a special person to me. Just you know, got me in the door, and I was like, wow, okay, opened my eyes to like actual vocal training, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
that's one of my favorite subjects.
is it really?
Yeah, I love the because you can sing and you can experience your vocal cords moving and stuff. But then when you start to get into the details of it, well, then you're talking about how the muscles control the diaphragm, which is like a bag.
Right.
And so it's like, how much pressure are you putting on that bag?
Totally.
How fast is the air moving?
Totally.
And all of these little subtle things, your posture makes more space for the bag to get bigger, which allows for more air, which allows you to extend the notes longer, all that kind of
Totally.
stuff. I love that kind of stuff.
I would say, I now that you're saying that, I'm realizing, okay, here he goes. I see your signs on the hall here about the
the anatomy.
Anatomy, and
Yeah.
you got respiratory over there. I thought I saw, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some of those anatomy
Nice.
posters that I really
Cool.
like. I sometimes I'll stop and look at them and just kind of see like, well, because you have like several different posters, and one's showing the muscular system, one's showing the nervous, the endocrine, and you have all of these different posters that are very complex in themselves.
Sure.
And then to combine them all into one unit, that's in our bodies, and it's all layered,
Pretty
and
nuts.
stacked and compressed, and
Pretty
and not
nuts.
only is it there, but it's like moving, it's malleable. So like when your lungs, when they expand, you know, other stuff is like getting in. Okay, so here's a good example. So when you're full of food, when you have just eaten Thanksgiving dinner and you're full of food, your lungs cannot expand as much. They can't. There's not enough room for them to expand, so you can't breathe as deep, which is why it's, you know, not good to overeat. I'm well versed in that though, so I can speak from experience.
Like, man, I'm learning so much here. Okay, I think I'm at a lesson. I'm at a lesson right now.
Did you ever do choir or anything like that in school?
No. You know, to be honest, I thought the choir kids were losers. I was.
I was I was a loser. It's
Not
true.
you. I've actually gotten in trouble saying this to a couple other people, some people that I actually really care about. So
Some choir kids, did they beat you up?
they were this one in particular, she was a choir theater kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I actually didn't really know that at the time when I first met her. And
Start
I was like,
talking
wow,
crap.
this is sorry, I don't know. This is, you know, but I was actually a marching band kid.
One
So
to
I was
talk.
like,
You're
we're
one-
way cooler, dude.
you're one to
We have
talk.
an instrument. You're using your voice. Like,
Yeah.
lame.
No, man. I went to a parade the other day, and they had 3 different marching bands from different places, and those, like, it made me tear up because listening to such sound, I guess, in physical space is so much different than listening to like digital stuff through a speaker.
Oh, totally.
Listening to the actual instrument like 10 feet away from you, combined with like 50 of them, all
Yeah.
different instruments.
Yeah.
They're all marching in step and playing their parts. It's pretty incredible when you really
is.
break it down.
It is.
I
When
love
you
it.
say that, I love symphony, classical music.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a little kid, my grandfather, we would sit at the table for about an hour a day, and he would make me draw make me draw. We draw. He always drew airplanes. He was a really good airplane drawer. And so we'd always put on, I remember it, just right on the windowsill, he would put his little old school radio, back in the day, it was the old school radio. He would put that on and throw on the classical radio station. And so I think there's a piece of that like has grown on me with my passion for not only just music, but orchestras and symphonies and things of that sort, and so I totally understand what you're saying, because it's a when you can kind of dial in and kind of allow the music to be felt through you, right? There's a lot different things that happen, and that's where I get with like people are like, well, I don't like this music, I don't like that music. I'm like, okay, like I get that you have a preference on the genres that you like, and I understand because I have a few myself, but at the same time, if you just kind of break those walls down and like allow the music to do what it is intended to do, there's always something from it,
it's a massively different experience when you're letting the music move through you.
Oof.
So I was trying to help one of my friends one time play the flute. There's like a wood flute. The Native American flute. So it's a wood flute, pretty simple to play.
I was going to March Man. I'm like, you people, you flute
people.
Oh gosh,
I don't know any flute people. I don't think
you don't want to. I'm just kidding. Sorry,
but no, you're good. So I was teaching my friend to play the Native American flute, and she couldn't get it down, and something that I said like helped reverse the concept of it to the point where she immediately got it. And the thing I said was, okay, well, you're breathing and you're trying to blow air through this thing to make a sound. So instead, like take in a breath and then relax your awareness into the instrument itself and let the instrument play you.
Ooh. That's deep, man.
That's what I feel is happening. Totally. And I learned that through the didgeridoo. Oh. And those things, dude, they're so cool.
Big didgeridoo guy.
Dude, they're trippy.
Big didgeridoo guy. My mom had a couple of them when I was growing up, and I was like, they're so fun, man.
Dude, they're awesome.
I never had the lungs when I was younger, so then once I got a little bigger, and I was like, okay, I can actually, make this work and kind of control my breathing a little bit better and, get a nice, strong push through.
Yeah, it's all about the breathing.
Totally.
And it'll teach you how to breathe quite a bit.
It'll get you going.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. I love it. Had some pretty magical experiences with it.
Yeah. Sick.
Like things that is like, oh, wait. Did reality just bend? Stuff like that.
Big bender guy.
Big bender.
That's my thing. I say big whatever guy.
Oh, okay.
Big something guy. So you might hear that a couple times. It's
right
kind
on.
of just like maybe not a bad habit. It's just a habit.
So are you a big reality bender guy?
Big reality bender guy. I don't know exactly what that means, but it sounds pretty legit. So we'll say yes.
Right on. Right on. Well, that's a story in itself.
Yeah, music. So yes, music,
super powerful.
That's I feel like music is a big piece of my life. I mean, a big piece of everybody's life, right?
Yeah.
It's just your perspective on how it affects you, and how you allow it to kind of dictate you as a person or kind of how you live your life, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, how do you relate to it? Is it something you're listening to? Is it something you make? Mm-hmm. So you're making music, right? You're taking vocal lessons, and then are you making digital music as well?
Yeah. So I kind of started. I was really insecure at one point, like I've mentioned, and kind of made my first song that I was actually going to release. And so I made it. It was and for me when I am with music, I do the most of my expression, my emotional expression, through the writing of music. And I had gone through a pretty gnarly relationship, both ends, my end as well. Like just it was not a healthy relationship. I don't blame one person because I always say it takes two to tango. It wasn't just, her fault. It was definitely my fault in many ways. And so, through that pain, a lot of, just a tough season in my life. I kind of wrote this song a year before while we were kind of still together. And then once we kind of broke up, I kind of was dealing with that pain and kind of wrote this song. It's the only song I have on Spotify right now, and kind of was like, oh, I want to try my hand at it, and did it, and it was great. And so now I am kind of working a little bit different genre, a little bit more, I've been feeling really called to worship music, or not even just straight worship music, but just giving God credit in my music, and not necessarily speaking so much about pain and the suffering and, just kind of the emotional battle of things, which I still sing about that, right? But it's more so of kind of the victory in the end of like, what I'm fighting through, and like the person that's carrying me through it, rather than just my emotions and how I'm feeling and how me kind of thing. So I am working on a couple pieces right now.
Right on.
2 in particular. One is a little bit more kind of straight worship music based, and the other is also a little more kind of like a poppy kind of worship song.
Okay.
I don't know.
So what makes it worship music to you?
I think more so declaring Christ in the music.
Okay, so speaking it lyrically. So you're like singing it in a sense.
Like there's like kind of some of the chorus pieces have a little bit more of that, right? A little bit more of that kind of like rhythmic pattern of, this is what we're saying, what I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other one is, I would say, structured as a worship song. Like
okay,
it could
right.
be sung.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
What's the name of the song that you have on Spotify?
It's called Crazy.
And what's your artist name on there?
Ruben Ruiz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Pretty original, just take it back. But yeah, there's a couple other Ruben Ruizes, but yeah, you'll see my face.
Right on, I'll find it.
One.
Good deal, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how did you get into digital music, or like what do you use to make the music?
Yeah, so I use Logic Pro.
Okay.
I grew up so long ago. Was actually, funny story, Ironwood. I don't know if we should say that. Sorry.
We can say it. It doesn't matter. We can cut it out if we need to.
No, I'm fine with it, man. As long as you're cool. Like, you can find me in the yearbook. I'd look pretty good, so I'm fine. I'm fine with that, man. Haven't changed much.
Not if you're in marching band, you don't.
Dude, I was rocking, bro. I played football and I was doing marching band, so I was like the cool marching band kid.
That's impressive.
You know what I mean? Come on. But what was the question?
How did you get into using Logic Pro for making music?
So there was actually a young cat in my ceramics class. I remember like it was just yesterday, and he had this cracked version of Fruity Loops. And I was like, oh, dude, Fruity Loops, like everybody was using it. Like Skrillex was kind of making his big time move in the scene that year, probably like 2008, 2009-ish.
Yeah.
And he was using, a cracked version of Fruity Loops, which I'm sorry, Fruity Loops.
Fruity Loops is a music...
It was a music DAW, yeah.
Editing software, right?
Digital audio. Digital audio device.
Okay, and then what is a cracked version of that?
It was an illegal version, right?
Gotcha, okay. So
Digital Audio Workspace. Sorry, I'm like, what's the W? I'm like, holy smokes!
Watch out, you go.
Oh shoot!
I just put it up there earlier.
Soundproof.
Yeah, not really.
Making things fall down here.
I had those bass traps on duct tape, and they did not stay for like not even a week. So I got to put some spray adhesive on there or something. But
love it. Sorry, this studio is killer. Super cool. Super cool little room.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, so it's illegal version.
Yeah, so an illegal version of Fruity Loops.
It was on a little thumb drive, you know what I mean? It's like you gotta you download the normal files, and then you have like the cracked version, which is the illegal version, to overwrite to give you like the product key to using it, right?
Exactly.
So it would shut down on you, you'd have the music, you'd have your headset on and have the volume up, and something would happen and it would just like make these loud blares or something in the middle of it because you're using this janky version, you know what I mean? But so I got into it there, and I was like, oh man, this is what I've been waiting for, you know what I mean? I was I was actually in a band in high school. We won the talent show. Just got to throw that out there. It was killer.
That's cool.
People were pissed because some other people did some other things.
What did you do in the band?
I played the drums and I sang.
Right on.
And so I loved that. I enjoyed it a lot, but I always got frustrated. I couldn't really translate what I was thinking musically. So I had a really tough time being in a band. Like I always kind of wanted to be my way. And I realized I was a little bit more of like that, like assertive guy. And probably my other band members didn't,
So you're the guy that gets kicked out of the band.
Bro, I basically did, dude. I basically did. Well, not only that, but like my skills, I wasn't, honing my skills as much as I could as some other people. We're in a metal band, so like a hardcore band, and so some of these guys on this double bass had just like, man, I never learned just like my singing. I never took lessons, so it was all self-taught. So it was only get you to a certain point, you know what I mean? And as much as you put into it, you get out. And I wasn't dedicating as much time as I should have been. So that was tough. So then learning this Fruity Loops, I was like, oh shoot, I don't need to be in a band to make music. I can do it on my own.
Yeah, dude, that's
and so
that's where I'm at with the looper board.
Oh, dude, those things are sick.
Yeah,
those things are sick.
Yeah,
where is it? I'm looking in the room.
I haven't unboxed it yet.
Dude, no way.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Once I figured out what a looper board was and what you can do with it, I was like, oh, dude, I don't need to be in a band.
Dude, some people rip.
I can be the band.
You can be the band,
if
dude.
If you do it, if you train yourself well enough on those things, there's some pretty impressive
Some
ones.
people rip, bro.
Yeah, do you know Tosh Sultana?
Tosh Sultana, no.
She's a musician from Australia. She does live looping. I saw her at Red Rocks, and it was just mind-blowing.
Oh,
absolutely
dude.
mind-blowing.
You saw her there?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I've never been to Red Rocks. I've seen videos. I've seen everything, and I'm like, I need to go because it looks epic.
Incredible just performance put out by her that I did not see it coming. The intensity and she was just so good.
Dude, that's nuts.
Yeah, there's another one. The dude that inspired me to play the didgeridoo is Porangi. Is a dude that makes like world soul music.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. Use all sorts of different instruments from all over the world.
Dude, that's epic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Crazy.
But that's where that's what inspired me to do kind of what inspired you. You're like, oh, I can do this on my own. I can do this myself, which is great.
Totally. Yeah, totally. So that went from Fruity Loops, and then I liked it. It was like cool, and then I was like, I just wanted to use what everybody else is using, and I felt like Fruity Loops was, it kind of started getting a little out of date, and some things other people were using was like Ableton. So I got Ableton and tried to teach, it's pretty transferable, the different things you can do, obviously, plugins and how to use the plugins and things of that sort. But then I was like, Ableton's not really my jam. And then I kind of moved into, I got a Mac, I got a janky old desktop, and it was when it was just the screens, and there are these 20-inch screens with like 4-inch thick, of the screen itself, the depth of it, because it's nowadays they're like an inch thick, back then it was like 4 or 5 inches thick worth of computer. And so I got it, and it was still like 4 or 5 years old, but it had Logic on it.
Yeah, that's where the computer's inside the monitor. Yeah. It's all one unit.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I was mind blown. I'm like, well, this is like flat screen, but it was like 5 inches thick. Like, yeah.
So Logic is best on
Mac products. Yeah, Apple products.
Is it made from? Do they make
Apple
Logic?
Apple makes it. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay, and then Ableton can be used by any.
Yeah, you can use it on any.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I got that Mac, and I was like, cool. I think, I was like, some big people are using it, and I think it was like, I don't know what I was watching. I went to like a Cascade festival, and then I found that Cascade was using Logic, I think it was. And so I started using Logic. I'm like, dude, this is it. Like, everybody's using it. And so I just kind of really honed in, learning things and different tricks, and that's kind of where I started, diving in a little deeper kind of with production of things and watching videos, and taught myself YouTube, and actually had a really great friend, still a good friend of mine, probably one of the best producers I know, like closely, Todd. Shout out to Todd, you're my boy, man. He was like a complete mentor to me. He uses Ableton, so it was a little difficult to kind of translate, but I mean, he taught me what sound is, how to really interpret sound and hear things that you've never listened to before. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Can you give an example of that?
He put me in a he had a legit little studio in his house, and he would play the same track, right? And then he would say, "Okay, I want you to listen," or like put out a lower volume, and he's like, "I want you to just listen to what you hear." I was like, "Okay, cool, yeah." And then we would listen to a segment, and then he'd say, "Cool, now we're gonna crank it up, and I want you to tell me what you hear now." So just listen at different levels, and then he'd go back and say, "Okay, I want you to listen for this little harp in the background." And I'm like, "I didn't hear a harp, bro." And then so he'd go back, and I would really, you just kind of focus in on all the sounds and then listen for a harp. And I'm like, holy smokes, there's a harp in this, right? And so I think it's more so of just the composition of mixing music together, right? You create this big stack, and then you that's what music production is, right? You put it all together in one chord, one streamline, right? And so it makes it difficult to pull these parts out when you mix it well.
Yeah.
And so just listening to these different, he's like, "Okay, now I want you to listen to this high pitch. It sounds like this." He'd play it on the keyboard. So it sounds like this right here. And I'm like, dude, what the heck? And then you go back and listen, and you it's almost like you train your mind to focus on a certain piece of a sound, right? So you're the frequency of the song, you're changing the frequency of your brain of where it's, targeting.
Yeah. You're shifting the focus on the spectrum of listening.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So you've seen X-Men, right?
Of course.
Do you remember? So
Jaws.
Professor X.
Jaws.
You remember Professor X goes into Cerebro? Mm-hmm. So
Welcome, Professor.
Yeah. So he goes out on that platform, right? And he's in the middle of a sphere, right, on this platform. And I that's how I kind of visualize, if I were to close my eyes and try and watch the music with my eyes closed through sound.
Yeah.
Then I can see okay, well, I can hear something hitting up toward the top, and that's maybe the cymbals or whatever. But it's like when you're looking at it in Ableton or Logic, it's two-dimensional, and you just see the wave patterns. Mm-hmm. But then when you close your eyes and you feel the music and you look and you try to look at it, then you can see that it's in all different places.
Sure.
And it's it's.
Are you bending reality right now?
No. I don't think so.
I'm here we go.
But when I'm listening to a song and I'm doing what you're talking about, trying to find certain sounds, or I think I heard something, but it's subtle. It's in the background.
Sure.
There's layers. Mm-hmm. There's spherical layers to this sound, because sound is a three-dimensional thing.
Totally.
It's not something that you can't see. You can see its effects. You can obviously hear it, but you can feel it physiologically in your body. So you get that deep bass. So it's hitting three-dimensionally. It's, I don't know how else to say it, but
I feel you. I totally feel you.
So when I'm trying to track music, that's what I do.
Yeah, got it.
I try and find the layers and where they are spherically. Yeah,
that's good.
It's hard.
It's good. Yeah, it is.
I'm not good at it. There was this assignment that I had in fourth grade. We had a music class, and our assignment was okay, pick a song. I'm in fourth grade. I don't know any songs. Pick a song, and then you're supposed to make a pie chart or something of all the different instruments that are in that song. And then when we play this, then you're going to play the song for the class. And then each time the instrument changes to the other instrument, you're going to point at it on the pie graph.
Dude, what kind of classes were you in, bro? This is high level,
no,
dude.
No, it's not even high
level.
Juilliard,
bro. What in fourth grade?
That's
sure.
what I'm saying. So I got an F. That's the only F I ever remember getting.
What the F, dude?
I got an F, and it was a big fat red F on the back of the paper, and I was so upset because I picked some VeggieTales song, because that's all I knew.
Oh, dude, that person was atheist, dude.
It was messed up, man.
You can't do that to VeggieTales.
Well, but the thing is when you're listening to a song, first of all, I'm in fourth grade. I don't know what instruments even exist.
Totally.
How can I pick apart a song and tell you what instruments are in it, and then point to which ones are playing right now? Because they're all playing in conjunction with each other.
Sure.
So I don't even know how anybody passed that assignment.
That's nuts. That teacher was atheist. I'm just gonna say that teacher was atheist.
Rude.
Hater.
So you said you play the drums and you started off by playing trumpet when you were younger?
Yeah, I started playing the trumpet.
What else do you play? Do you play anything else?
I don't actively play anything, so I don't want to claim like, yeah, I play these things. But, I can pick up a trumpet and spit some stuff, and then I play the drums. I grew up playing the drums for a while also, and again in the band and played in worship teams and stuff like that. And so I did all that. So drums and trumpet, I'd say.
Right on. And then right now you do the voice.
Right now, voice, yeah. And kind of, I wouldn't say I play the piano. I manipulate different keys.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't play.
You plink?
I plink.
Yeah, you
no planking. Well, I do plank also, but I plink too.
Yeah,
as well.
Planking is good for the abs, which is good for the diaphragm, which is good for the singing.
I'm sore right now, dude. Holy smokes.
So there's this, something I've heard before from actually the guy that inspired me to play the didgeridoo. He said, the voice is like the fingerprint of the soul.
Oof. Wow. That's deep. I'm just digesting that. I'm just digesting that.
Digest it all you need.
Digest away. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good. And it makes so much sense to me, because that's one thing that people are so afraid to do is to sing in front of crowds.
Yeah.
Or sing in front of other people or
Here
whatever.
I am. Are you putting me on blast right now? You're looking at me kind of funny, man.
I'm just looking at you.
You're kind of staring at me. You're staring at me, bro.
No, I'm actually looking at your forehead. No, so people are that's one of the main things is like public speaking, right? That's like, I think it's statistically the thing that most people are the most afraid of. Yeah. And the common theme between public speaking and singing in front of people is that you're using your voice and you're 100% vulnerable.
Totally.
And
you're making an imprint
in your expression. And yeah,
you're going to make an imprint, not just on. You're going to make an imprint on what your soul is.
Yeah.
Right? Like your buddy said. What did it say one more time for the listeners here?
The voice is the fingerprint of the soul.
Yeah.
So it's unique to your soul. Mm-hmm. And when you are expressing fully vocally, that's your soul expression.
Wow.
And so it makes you 100% vulnerable, which is why it's like
Dude, that's deep.
Such a scary thing for a lot of people, I think.
I'm going to write that down. That's good. No, it is. It totally is. That's funny that you say that. And I think it might be a piece of like when you're like, sing something for us. I'm like, it's like, not being prepared.
Hey, tell me a joke.
So, no, but the thing of, I think I'm still trying to figure out like what songs I bang with, you know what I mean? Like
other people's songs that you can...
Yeah, I mean, just in general, right? Somebody's like, hey, oh, you sing? Great, sing us something. When you put it on the spot, you're like, well...
So when you say bang with, do you mean like songs that are in your vocal range that you would go sing karaoke?
Yeah, Okay.
Like what are you good at singing?
I bang with this song, dog. You know what I mean? Like, so the song like I mob to. This is a song I like...
I'm going to have to write those ones down. I've never heard that before.
Oh, dude, I banged that song.
That's so funny.
Not like, yeah, okay.
A headbang.
We'll just headbang.
A headbang.
There you go.
Song.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about. Anyways.
I don't even remember what we were saying.
We were talking about imprint, singing in front of people.
Yeah. And you said that you were finding...
trying to find what songs you're like,
what songs
you feel comfortable, right? And
yeah.
I think it's funny you say that because it's like, yeah, I don't want somebody to hear me sing and be like, oh, yeah, that guy is saying that song, like, and... Obviously. Again, like you're saying, that's an imprint you're going to leave on somebody else's soul because it's from yours. You're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is funny you say that because I've actually been like trying to step into that a lot more. I think this season of my life, just not being a yes man to people, but being a yes man to opportunities and things at hand. You know what I mean? Like when you first reached out and was like, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. And I'm like, yeah. That's kind of cool, man. I don't know that I want to do that. Yeah. But then I was just like, how cool is it? Somebody to reach out and say, hey, I want you to come down and be on it. One. And then two, I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity. I've always wanted to be on a podcast before. Yeah. I've always wanted to kind of do that. And like, it sounds like a good time, but like these opportunities. When am I going to get another opportunity? You know, like maybe now's the time to start with that type of opportunity. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm going to be on all these podcasts and you know, but.
Right. But we get to thinking about like
boom,
what we're doing and where we want to be based on what we're doing.
So let's take a step.
Music, exactly.
Take a freaking step, dog.
Don't let life slip by.
Totally. You know, I think it's the same thing with people like, oh, he's only let out one song, or you know, oh, he only has 10 episodes. I'm like, right. Well, what are you doing, bro?
Well, here's
like, do you have a song? Oh, you could do that podcast better. Well, where's your podcast? Or like, oh, you could do something better. You know, those people drive me crazy.
That's just noise, though. That's just the voices.
Those
like,
are the voices.
Are just voices that you got to hear, and then you got to let it just like bounce off.
Totally.
But like what you said about it's like a marathon, right? You're never going to complete a marathon unless you take the first step.
Let's go.
And even if you're taking giant steps or baby steps, every single one of those steps equals distance.
Yeah. Are we writing a book right now? I feel like we're writing a book.
I already wrote the book. It's just we're in verbal dictation right now.
So. Love it. Yeah. So, and then now you're saying all this too. I actually, you know, I've been taking these singing lessons.
Yeah.
I've been being, you know, extremely consistent with taking them, you know, every week. And there's a pop-up going on this weekend, a little pop-up, Christmas pop-up. You know, they have all the people inside. I like saying pop-up. They got this pop-up.
What is a pop-up?
You know, this pops right up. It's like a little concert, you know. Okay. Yeah. So it's a little pop-up. Pop-up. And so she's like, hey, you should sing a song. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, that sounds like the worst idea I think you've had since I've been coming to you.
Yeah.
But she's like, no, you should. I'm like, and then she, you know, picked a song for me basically. And I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? I think I could do that. So actually this Sunday is kind of going to be a big day for me. You know, I was singing on the worship team for a long time. And I've kind of found like a big passion and strength in that, and kind of felt a big calling on that. And, you know, just kind of moved into another season. You know, I stepped out of that for a little bit. You know, this kind of be the first time that I kind of be singing in front of, you know, might be 5 people, but I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know, and again, back to that opportunity, right? It's like, let's start making yes man choices. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, let's not be scared and stay in our bubble and not do anything. Like,
yeah, because you're trying to get to that goal, right? And the goal is to, you know, make music for other people to enjoy and hopefully to get paid for it.
I mean, you know, that's always the ultimate goal. You know, at the end of the day, not the ultimate, but I mean the ending goal. You know, the first thing I think for me is the expression, right? The expression that I am able to receive, a little bit more of like the healing, right? From expressing myself through the music.
Yeah,
I'm imprinting the imprint on my soul.
Huge.
Right?
Well, talking about bending reality, like when you're putting intention into sound and you're sending it out into space, you're sending out sound waves that carry purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So I would argue that what you're doing through that, it's like a prayer almost. When you pray...
Well, it's a praise, right? I mean, it really is.
It is.
You
it's
know
a praise.
I mean?
It's a musical prayer.
Right. Just like it says in the Bible, right? You know, make a joyful noise. You know, make a joyful noise. You know?
Yeah, right on.
I think that's something that I always think about, and I think again the shift in kind of my music. When I was a little kid, my grandmother, and my grandfather, I love both sides. You know, so let's make that clear. But my mom's side was the one I was a little closer to, right? You know, I love them dearly. I still love them to this day. They're no longer with us. But my grandmother and my grandfather were, you know, the one that would play the classical music for me. And my grandmother, they were just so full of love. They loved God so much. They were on fire. You know what I mean? Like, just my grandmother just exuded just joy and love and just care, and I love that, right? That's where I found that, like, oh my gosh, this person loves me, you know what I mean? And I was still really young, and I was I remember, again, clear as day, I have these crazy like memories of, you know, these like life impacting moments. And I was sitting in my room, and I had this little cassette player, tape player. For those of you that know, you know, cassette tape, and so I had a tape in there, and it was a Christian rap a Christian rap group. And so I had it on. And, my grandmother was older, so, in their minds, they hear rap, and they're like, oh, that's probably not a good one.
You know who it was?
Yeah. I think it was No to Verbs.
Huh.
No to Verbs. Yeah,
Okay.
they were lit, man. They were so good.
I don't know them.
Oh, dude, check them out. They're really good artists.
Cool.
Christian artists, obviously, because that's all I could listen to. And so I had it playing, and I remember my grandmother coming down the hall, and I had the music going on, and she stopped and like was standing over me. I was on the ground right next to my tape player, and then she kind of looked at me and said, "You only make good music. You make music to make God happy, and you only do things, only listen to good music and make good music." And I was just like, yeah, whatever, Grandma. I was a little kid. I was like, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. So kind of in one ear, out the other. But
it stuck with you, obviously.
It's stuck, man.
Wow.
It's stuck. And so I think that's kind of like the big shift in like kind of where I'm at now, that, yeah, making music is cool. And yeah, this and that. And, I always made a pact to myself, and, more so of like a promise with God. Like, I'm not going to make music with curse words in it or anything like that. Like, it's just not what I stand for. And again, I keep thinking of what you say of this, your voice is an imprint of your soul.
The fingerprint.
The fingerprint.
Soul. Like,
for
it's
your
unique.
soul.
It's unique to you.
Boom. So I think that cursing in music, like, I'm not condemning anybody, but that's just not what I think is what my soul is, you know what I mean? And so I kind of made this pact not to curse in any words, and I would never produce or be on any music with anybody that's cursing in music.
That's awesome. I don't know exactly what the Bible says about that, but my perspective on cursing is, for me, if I'm going to make music, I will allow myself to use those words because of the potency of the expression. And sometimes there's something that I'm trying to convey.
Sure.
The depth of the emotion of how I feel and what I want.
I understand that.
People to feel that I felt or whatever.
Totally.
It's like,
totally.
So,
and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because like, I curse every once in a while, man. Like, let's be honest, I'm not perfect, bro. I'm not saying I'm anything close to perfect. Like, the people that know me are like, oh yeah, dude. But I'm not like freaking F-bombing it here and there every second of the day.
Yeah.
There's probably days that I wish I was a little, better with my mouth than others.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from with that. And I think, again, that's just the kind of shift for me. It's just, I want to make a joyful noise. And I've always believed that you can, the rappers that I felt were stronger with their words could depict the emotions and their feelings, describing rather than having to use a curse word. Which, again, I'm not saying, like, the Bible says ass, you know what I mean? Like, come on, it says jackass in there, like, so I'm not saying anything wrong. It's just my personal thing. And then with my grandmother saying this to me when I was a little kid, I was like, okay, whatever. But there's been a time in the past that I was working on a track, and my buddy, he, had a curse word on there, and I was just like, song's cool, man. I like this, and we're singing on it together. But
can't show my mom.
Not. I mean, mom would be like, "Come on, honey."
Yeah.
But at the same time, I said, I felt this conviction in my heart, and I was like, "Yeah, man, like, I don't want to release this if we're gonna have like curse words on it."
Yeah.
And he was actually not a super big fan about it. He was not a fan.
Yeah.
But he changed his lyrics over, and we still released the song. And I was like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? So
that's nice.
So anyways, just back to all that, I that stuck with me heavy. I loved my grandmother. And she passed, she got cancer and passed, and my grandfather got cancer and passed the year after. And it was super traumatic for me at a young age, just, witnessing that. I was a little kid, I watched my grandmother take her last breaths. I watched my grandfather, he got brain cancer, and he forgot who I was. So it was extremely traumatic for me. So I think that impacted my walk, where my faith was also. And so I think a lot of those things kind of got mixed up with what I was doing and what I was doing through music. Because there was a point in time where I was cursing a lot of music, and I wasn't releasing any of it, but I was still making music with these words and hateful things and, you know, things of that sort.
So you're using the music to process the emotion.
Yeah. Totally.
That's awesome.
And so, I think it wasn't until I kind of like started to kind of question my faith and kind of really try to understand who God meant to me, who God was for me. You know what I mean? Not for me, who God is. Mm-hmm. I think that I kind of started to, okay, you know, maybe God gave me a gift, and, you know, I feel like God's given me a gift, and I feel like I have, you know, something to share, you know, whether it's amazing or not. You know, I there's a passion, there's something that's burning in me that I felt calling to do music, you know, to continue with music and not give up and not stop singing. So, that's something that's super big for me. You know, my grandmother, I love her so much, man. I think about them all the time, you know, and I definitely know that I would be proud to know for them to be here and see the music that I was making and just that little piece that she gave me that she might not have ever even remembered, but that she gave that to me.
The impact it's had.
Yeah, man.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's heavy, bro. It's heavy.
Beautiful.
It's heavy.
I remember my mom would always tell me about curse words. She would say it's not so much the word, but it's the heart. Oof. It's where your heart is at when you're saying the word.
Yeah.
So that would apply not only to damn, but to darn and dang it and stuff. So anything, she said, anything could be a curse word. It's just like how you're using it.
I'll give that to you.
Yeah, that's that's an important one, I think. Mm-hmm. But going back to the bending reality thing, I think when you're sending your intention through the sound out into like space, and it can hit things and people and bounce off of things or be absorbed by people, I think that has the ability to it changes the world on a regular basis. That's why songs are like classic songs, or they're a hit because they make such an impact that it shifts the world that we live in. So
I think it's just like you're saying with worship in church, right? I mean, there's an atmosphere that comes along with that, which, you know, I the Holy Spirit, is there in the room.
Yeah.
And then when that music, obviously I know, you know, the chords and, you know, the progression of where it goes has a lot to do with that also. Just that ability to use the words in a setting of worship and praise, I think it's even more powerful, right? Because
I would actually argue that the music and the intention put into the music opens like a door, like a spiritual door for the Holy Spirit to come and be present.
Big door guy. Big door guy, dude.
I think I can translate that too. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Is that it?
It's pretty much. Yeah.
But the opposite can happen too. Like it depends on what it is that you're praising.
Yeah.
Because if you're not praising God or the Holy Spirit, then you're praising something else, which opens different kinds of doors.
Totally.
It's like if you listen to certain music, man, it's going to affect you in a certain way.
100%.
And if you carry that around, then that's going to color your day.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny when you say that too, definitely opens doors. And, you know, I find myself with like a lot of house music, you know, like very like Rufus do Sol, right?
Don't know it. Heard of it. Don't know it.
Rufus do Sol, dude. They're great. They do... I mean, they're a couple instruments, you know what I mean? They're electronic music as well, a little more house, like house vibe, I guess you could say. And just the way that they use their chord progressions, just how it goes, I can find myself like closing my eyes and like, man, you feel something, right? You feel that, like you're saying, like it opens this door to something. And I almost find myself kind of going into like almost like a worship state. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, the door.
Dude, yeah.
Yes, it's the door. But if they had like maybe some words of praise, or we're talking about something else, you know, it's just that fundamental like sound thing. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to, I'm trying to pull it out.
It's like a neutral tool, right? Mm-hmm. But where's it going? What are you doing with it? And what's your goal? It's because like it has like even music that is not praising God can have that effect. And I'll give you an example.
Give it to me.
Seether. Have you ever heard of Seether?
I want to say yes.
Okay, so it's a rock band, but it's very very sad, very like.
Here's a little fun fact. I'm terrible with names. I'm
Okay.
so bad with names. I think I attribute it to, I have a very like photographic memory.
Yeah.
Like if I see things and I'll remember it. And I think I attribute it to growing up and not seeing a lot of these, bands and music and songs. So people are like, oh yeah, the oldies are like this classic. And I'm like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but I never remember seeing a cassette tape or a CD or, anything to attribute to it. So I'm really terrible at names, but if I heard it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know them.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's an example for me. The point of the example is basically to say that music can feel really good. Like you said, there's an atmosphere in the room. Mm-hmm. So you can create an atmosphere that feels very similar. And you're like rubbing shoulders with like what feels like reverence or sacredness. And it might not be giving credit to God.
Yeah.
But it might still feel
totally
like it is. So that's one thing is like discernment through sound is super. It can be hard for me because I listen to some musicians and I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like they're transmitting the Holy Spirit in this music, but they're not talking about Jesus or God at all. So but to me, in my heart, in my body, and in my mind, and when I sing it, it sounds like it feels like it's a joyful noise, and I'm using it as praise. Yeah. So that's an interesting one that I'm trying to examine consistently.
No, that's good.
Because do you know Tool?
Of course I know Tool, bro.
Okay, so that's a good example.
I was in 4th grade when I heard my first Tool song. I remember like clear as day.
What song?
Good friend Nico, his dad was like this straight, like, he loved music. He had all these crazy CDs and records, and I'd listened to Gorillaz, back when
cool.
I think it was, I remember this clear as day, man. Clint Eastwood, when Clint Eastwood came out, I was in 4th grade. It was like 2001 or 2.
Oh, really? Oh, 4th grade. Okay.
Sorry, you're old, dude.
I'm old.
I'm just kidding. It was like 2001 or 2002. I think it was 2002. Clint Eastwood came out by the Gorillaz. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag and I'm useless.
Not for long the future.
Come on. So anyway, so he played Tool. Schism came out, right?
That is my favorite, probably my favorite Tool song.
That's why the only Tool song I know. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy cool, man. Like all these guitars and whoa, frick.
It's absolutely incredible.
Incredible. But one of the most incredible musicians.
And it feels so good to listen to. Those sounds like feel so good. Yeah. I know the pieces fit.
No, they fit.
But what are they singing about or to? Because it's super weird, and they sing some weird, messed up stuff from the average
and their track
viewpoint.
The album artwork is like super like weird transcendence kind of thing. I don't know. You know? But so when you're saying that though too, I think about I have this app, Insight Timer.
I know that app.
Come on, dude. Mm-hmm. If you guys don't know Insight Timer, you need to download it. It's super legit. They have like meditating, and they have healing sounds, and it's the frequencies, right? And so it's these frequencies that I think we feel, right? And when you use them in different aspects, of course, you're going to feel something in aspects of worship. You feel something different, but it's like exactly what you're saying. It's those frequencies also that they trigger something in our bodies, right? Like our molecular being is being triggered by these sound waves that are affecting us. We're absorbing them.
Yeah, so it's in co-resonance, which is what feels good most of the time, or it's in like dissonance, which feels like
make you unsettled
off or unsettled.
Right. Yeah, totally. Man. Legit. That's good.
It's so crazy. They use all sorts of different weird instruments. Tool does. Okay, just took a little break, and we're back.
And we're back with more.
All right, so what were we talking about? We're talking about Tool, co-resonance, dissonance, and the different sounds, sending intention through the sound.
Intention through sound.
And changing the world based on that. Based on that.
Bass, get it? Bass. Bass.
Best radio voice.
And hello, welcome to the Andy Powell Show.
Oh, man, I don't know if I can even do that.
Here's your host, Andy Powell.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's been a while. We've been watching a lot of sports, been watching a lot of basketball. ASU just sweeped the other
Smoked
team.
SMU.
SMU 75-49.
75-57, I think it was.
Same difference.
Oh man.
Well, so as far as like music and singing and writing and recording and all that stuff goes, is there anything else that you want to talk about in that field right now, or because I got some other stuff we could dive into?
Yeah, dive in. I mean, I think this just a season in my life. It's a wild one. It's a little bit of a wild one right now. A lot of uncertainties and just a lot going on. So I think this next season of music is kind of gonna not necessarily be a reflection of all of that, but a little bit of it's definitely some soul imprints on this music here happening. Some fingerprints happening from this type of music that I'm gonna be kind of releasing. Which, it's I'm trying not to rush the process on it. I've written quite a large chunk of it already. And so, man, I get fired up just thinking about it. Some of the words and some of the just the keys that they're in, they're heavy, man. It's heavy.
Yeah.
Not in like, oh, I'm gonna cry, but it's just like it hits.
There's depth to it.
There's a lot of depth, man.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. To kind of see, not like, oh, I'm gonna do something crazy, but just to get it off my chest. I think that was the big thing with releasing my last song. It was a heavy song for me. Like I just had to get it out and off, like out in the open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think kind of just that release that I get from that.
Yeah.
Is something I'm really looking forward to. You know what I mean?
It's like you're shedding something.
Big shedder guy.
Yeah, especially because it's like we talked about it being emotional expression earlier. So if it's like helping you process emotions, then once those emotions are fully processed and you birth that song out into the world, then you're like free.
Oof.
You're free of that stuff.
It's good.
And it's good because you don't want to detach yourself from the music. You want, to a point, you want to have your emotions affect what it is that you're writing, because that's the purpose of the expression. Okay, so you are a felon.
Whoa, dude, what the heck? What the heck, dude? Holy smokes, bro. Is Ashton coming? I'm waiting for Ashton to hop out of your closet over here. This little sound booth you got going on.
No. So we could cut all that out if you want.
No,
it's
dude,
no big deal.
I got no shame in my game, bro.
Do you feel like talking about it?
I got no shame in my game.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious. 'Cause
yeah. It's a big piece of who I am. Who I am today, man.
Big felon guy.
Big felon guy. Yeah, don't tell that to my next employer. Lord willing, I can stay with the one I'm at. but yeah, I got a couple felonies.
Yeah.
I got a couple.
Yeah.
Next topic. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding, bro.
Dude, really? If you don't want to talk about
I'm seriously joking, dude. Keep all this. This
okay.
Is good.
All right. Sounds good,
dude. Again, I got no shame in my game,
so
bro.
So what was what was the first felony for?
So it was actually I got a package deal on this whole instance.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. Yeah, no. So I was young and dumb. I was 21, and I drank a lot. I drank a lot. I kind of had always struggled with substance, I guess you could say. I smoked a lot of weed. I started smoking weed when I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was getting ripped and adding a little alcohol in there, and I mean, you name it, man. I was, I wasn't doing any hardcore drugs, you know what I mean? Like back in the rave days, I was, doing a lot of ecstasy and
oh, really?
So it was pretty.
Well, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, maybe another time. But
okay.
So I was drinking a lot, and I was 21, and decided to. It was actually doesn't matter where it was. I went out and decided to get hammered.
Yeah.
And I got super hammered, and I found my way to my car, and I started to drive home. I was maybe like halfway home, and I blacked out. I definitely blacked out, and kind of came to, and I remember seeing some, cop lights behind me, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm in their way. I should probably get out of their way. I kind of probably blacked out a little bit, and then kind of came to again, and I was, ended up, I parked my car, and so, I remember like cop coming up, and they're, put your hands out the window, and I remember putting my hands out the window, and then I just remember taking this deep breath. I was like, and I put my hands back in, and as I released, my hands came in the car, and I remember looking in my mirror, and the cop had their gun out, put your hands out the window, and I was like, oh man, okay, here we go, and put my hands out the window, and came up, and have you been drinking? I'm like, yeah, I had a couple drinks, and and he's like, how many you drink? I'm like, I don't know, maybe like a Corona, and that's when Fireball was a big time happening, and I was like, and I had 2 shots of Fireball and the Corona. I probably had like a whole bottle of Fireball and, probably like a 12-pack, 24 case of Corona, bro. Sticking true to my roots. It's not funny. It's funny when I say it, but, it was like, man, I was young and reckless, and, I didn't care. I didn't care about too much, you know what I mean? And come to find out, I got arrested. I thought I was going to leave. I still didn't know what happened, and I was like, I was in Glendale City Jail, and I was like, hey, when am I going to get to leave? So, a couple other guys were coming and going, and they're like, you're not going anywhere. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you're going downtown. Think of it like a movie. You're going downtown, kid. Like, it's like, oh, what does that mean?
And you, at that point, you still didn't know that it was for driving drunk?
Yeah, no. And so they pulled me into, the little room here. I mean, dude, I was pretty hammered, I was really hammered. And
you were still drunk at this time in the jail, and that's what you're referring to. Okay,
I don't remember getting in the cop car and coming to the jail. Like, it was just nasty, bro. And so then I came in. He's like, yeah, it's sign these papers because they make you sign some stuff or whatever. And I was like, I need my phone call. Like, give me my phone call. I was like, always remember it in movies, just belligerent. I need my phone call. And so he's like, yeah, you hit somebody. You hit someone. I'm like, I didn't hit anybody. And so I remember, calling my dad, and my parents would be pissed telling the story, but I call my dad, and he's like, I'm like, Dad, they said I hit somebody, and and he's like, don't agree to anything, like don't say anything, like we're gonna get a lawyer and blah blah blah. Bless their hearts, man. I thank God so much for my parents, man. They are literally the best people ever, man, for just what a crazy, reckless little just asshole son that I was, man. I just told my mom this like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I'm like, thank you guys for like just never giving up on me. Like, what a piece of work I was, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
So
I had that conversation with my dad recently, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like I did not give him an easy time at all.
Oof.
It was not. We butted heads quite a bit when I was younger. So.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I remember you like talking about that at youth group when we were in Vineyard.
Yeah,
I actually,
probably.
Like, really remember something.
Yeah, because I had a girlfriend, and I wasn't supposed to have a girlfriend yet. I wasn't allowed.
Remember this.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to have a girlfriend.
I remember this.
So I would lie to my parents all the time and tell them
you got in trouble.
A lot.
Oh, and there was a you got in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, who would have thought? Yeah, no, I swear I remember something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty. I was pretty vocal about it.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. So yeah, man, that happened. I came into downtown jail in Phoenix. It was nuts. Changed. It was wild, man. So I was there for. I got stuck there for about 2.5, 3 days. Processing took maybe like 24 hours, 36 hours, and then I got placed into like actual Lower Buckeye Jail, which is the jail where you go in between, and so the in between, No, so
in between Glendale jail.
No. It's downtown. So there's downtown like processing, and then they have a jail there for people that like. So what happens? People don't understand. Like, oh, he went to prison. Like, okay, so there's prison is you get a charge, right, and then you get sentenced either guilty or not guilty. Obviously not guilty. You probably wouldn't go. You plead guilty, or if you get charged, right, you go. Then they sentence you to 1 year.
Or
in
more.
Prison or more, right?
But if it's less than a year,
2 years,
it's jail.
It could be jail, right?
Okay.
Right. So yeah, prison is you're serving a long-term basic sentence, or you can do a year in prison, right? Or county, which is jail, is people that haven't been convicted yet, pleaded guilty or not guilty, and been convicted. They're stuck in limbo, right? So people that can't afford a bond, like to get out of jail, are stuck in jail as they go through their court cases and their trials. So they're stuck there. They don't have an option to go to prison. They're stuck in jail. So it's basically like a holding. It's the waiting period. You know what I mean? To the other side. So I was in there downtown, and God bless my parents. They got me a lawyer, and she came and she started reading me the report of what had happened.
Oh.
And
that's when you found out.
That's the first time I actually talked to somebody out, I've seen a face-to-face person probably within like 36, almost 40 hours, right? Like an actual person who like treats me like a human being, right? Because the detention officer, the detention officers, I mean, they work with all these crazy effed up people that are on drugs and, who knows what. So, they're doing their job, you know what I mean? God bless them for doing that type of job. And so I didn't have any interaction with like somebody who treated me like a normal person, right? You're underground. It's all concrete. You're sleeping on a toilet paper roll. You're laying on the ground next to all these nasty dudes. People are peeing in the same stall. There's 15 of you. You got to smell somebody else doing their thing. Like nuts, bro. It's like so like dehumanizing, right? Like if that's even a word.
It is.
Okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is in my vocabulary. Got to send it. And so it was nuts, bro. And so once I met this lady, this clean cut, amazing lawyer, she started reading to me, and oh man, my heart just dropped, bro. The crazy thing. Some would argue different, that have, I won't go into that. Some would say otherwise, but, I didn't kill the man. God, thank God. It was an actual miracle, an actual God-given miracle. I was driving and I hit a dude on a motorcycle.
What?
The report says that I drug him, hundreds of yards down the road, but he would have probably not been as like okay as he was. And then somebody called a hit and run down the street, and they called a hit and run on me. And there just happened to be an officer within a half-mile vicinity who saw my car passing by as this was being called in, and saw the front right of my vehicle was damaged, put two and two together, that they called this hit and run, white car. Okay, this dude just hit this dude and took off, right? So they came, pulled up behind me, turned the lights on. This is when I came to, and I was like, oh, I'm trying to, let me get out of their way. I was running from the cop. I drove through a QT gas station, came out on the other end, wrong side of the road, driving, towards traffic. Like,
wait, you said you were running from the cop, because that's what they put in the report, right? Like consciously,
I'm like, oh, I'm in his way. Let me get out of his way. So I'm speeding out of his way, right?
Man.
When I'm actually running from this guy, idiot, bro.
That's why
idiot.
They came up to you with their guns drawn.
Yes, because I had ran, right?
Yeah.
And so I, popped out on the other side of this. I was speeding through a gas station, I guess, bobbing and weaving. Thank God I didn't kill anybody, man, or hurt anybody in that process. Cause I mean, this is a busy intersection where this QT was, man. And so then, ran, I was driving wrong side of traffic, and then pulled into a neighborhood, and then pulled off, finally pulled over, did the whole thing, just gave me a sobriety test. I said, no, I'm not doing sobriety. No. They're like, come on, do something for us. And, I did a little, do something for me. And so I did a little walk. It's a song. It's a stupid song. And so I did this walk, and I almost fell. And they're like, yeah. And they just, turned around. And so I didn't realize, I'm like, I know my rights. I'm not going to say I was drinking. I'm not breathalyzing. No. Right?
That gives them the
pass
to take you to jail.
It actually, in Arizona, it's a 1-year minimum of your driver's license being revoked. If you deny doing a breathalyzer.
What? Even if you're sober?
I don't know if you're sober, because then you might not necessarily get in trouble, right? If they bring you in.
But if they do find out
it's a 1-year revoked license. So I didn't know that, and I'm like, I'm smart here. I'm being smart. Anyways, so
I don't know if
she's
I like
reading me
that.
all this stuff. I don't know if I do either, but so she's reading me all this, and I'm just like, holy smoke. So the dude had a big gash on his calf. Thank God he was not injured more, man. Like, again, if I had killed this man or actually like really, really hurt this dude, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I might be getting out of prison right now.
Yeah.
If I killed the dude,
yeah,
I'd be in prison for life.
How long ago was that? 8 years ago?
8 years ago.
Okay.
8 years ago, 2014.
Yeah.
My lucky number 17. 2014 on January 17th. So
January
my lucky number
17th.
is 17 is like my lucky number.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I still think it's lucky because God changed my life for a reason on that day, right? Which maybe I didn't learn from it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like, oh, my life changed and boom, everybody likes to think like God gives you this crazy miracle and all these things happen and everything changes.
But it did at the time.
It did at the time.
So it is.
And it still impacts me to this day, right? So like I still think about it all the time, man. Again, might not make the best decisions still. But man, it definitely taught me something, and it definitely, again, made me who I am today, whether good or bad, you know what I mean? You take some good with the bad along with it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that happened, right? And so I'm like, holy smokes, my bond's $50,000 to get out of jail. So I'm like, I did some serious stuff, and, I didn't grow up in a crazy wealthy family, but my dad and my mom were very frugal, and I was like, okay, they got 50 grand lying around that they can get me out of here, like hopefully, and all these other guys, they're a little more run down, I guess you could say, and they're like, oh bro, you're not getting out. And I'm like, no, my parents are like, oh, you got it like that, I'm like, I don't know, I sure hope so, you know what I mean? Like, and so
and this is in county.
This is downtown Phoenix.
Okay.
And so, you get your papers while you're there. I mean, it's a crazy experience, bro. I would never wish it upon my worst enemy, because it was wild, bro. You look at life a lot different.
Let me ask you the process real quick. So the incident happened, you got arrested, you got taken to Glendale downtown.
So it happened in Glendale.
Yeah.
So downtown Glendale jail.
Yeah.
And you go there.
How long were you there?
I was there for maybe like 14 hours.
And then they transferred you to...
And then they transferred me to downtown, which is
downtown Phoenix.
Like 4th Ave jail.
Okay. And
4th
how long
Ave
were
jail.
you there?
And I was there for maybe another like 24 hours.
And then they transferred you from there to
And then they transferred me there to the actual county jail. Yeah. To Lower Buckeye jail. And I was there for a day.
Okay.
Like, right, because I hadn't been convicted yet.
Right.
Right. She was just reading my charges, what happened.
Yeah.
So I hadn't been convicted yet. So I was there, and my parents, I think my parents wanted to teach me a lesson. And they're like, we're going to let him stay there. So I stayed there for a day and a half, 2 days inside a county. So all in all, I want to say like 4 or 5 days I was stuck. I was stuck there. And it was crazy, man. It was crazy. I was in this cell with this so it's very political, culturally political in jail. So you got the kinfolk, you got the woodsmen, you got the Chicanos, and you got the Chicanos, and you got the paisas.
What are the kinfolk?
Kinfolk are the black people,
and what are the
woodsmen are white people.
Really?
Chicanos are Mexicans that speak English, and the paisas are people like fresh off the boat, they say. So yeah, it's probably a little foul, but
it's like
fresh off the boat, they
Mexicans,
say. Yeah, Mexicans or even Asians,
or don't speak English.
That don't speak English. Anybody that doesn't speak English, you're considered
paisa is a Spanish one. A Spanish word.
Well, you still fall in paisa.
So paisa still applies in Mexico. That still applies to other people that
in jail. I don't know about in Mexico, but in jail it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do they call black people the kinfolk?
I don't know.
And why do they call white people the woodsman?
Woodsman. I don't know.
That's interesting. I've never heard those before. Okay, so it's like hierarchical. It's like segregated kind of in like self-segregation in prison.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because everything that happens in county, basically, you go to prison where a lot of these people were in county before. So a lot of family members, people that have been in jail or through the system are something in prison, right? They have like some type of there's something, their status, right?
Okay.
So you kind of a lot of what happens in jail will dictate what happens to you in prison, right? So people, there's a lot of gangs and a lot of cliques inside of county, and so they're reporting to their people in prison. So like, say you bring drugs into jail, right? They're like, oh, he's getting processed to go to prison. They'll like, the word will get out that this dude brings drugs into jail. And depending on what culture he's from, if they're not okay with that or if they don't like it, they'll typically, when he gets to prison, he'll probably get his ass kicked. And they'll probably, there'll be consequences. Like, it's nuts. It's like some crazy hierarchy. It's the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. It's like a whole new world.
So you went to the Chicanos group?
So I was Chicanos, yeah. And the guy that I was in the cell with, he was the head of the Paisas. And so he was Chicano before. And then he was like, no, you know what? I want to be Paisa. And when you do that and you change where you're from, it's not like the best. So he got, they call it a hot one. He got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
And so anyways, he was this big dude and super cool cat. Made me feel welcome, and we actually got to go to church together. They had a service while I was there and I was like, come on, man. He's like, no, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't really do that. And I'm like, just come, man. And something happened, dude. Something happened to him. Like, he felt something, man. So it was a crazy experience. I thank God, at that time I was like, I hate this. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me. You're in seclusion. You're in a room and it's you and yourself at the time, you learn, I have this thing that, that I had put down. It was like God's closest to you in like your time of struggle or in your lowest times. That's when God's closest to you. And it's so true. It really is true. Cause it's like, there's no distractions, right? There's silence and there's you, and you can choose to just go crazy with yourself, or you can choose to decide to have a conversation with a higher power and have a conversation with God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy experience. So that all happened, man.
Did you have any like bad experiences with other people in there?
No.
Any fights or anybody like
No.
you piss anybody off or anything?
No,
Nice.
I was once I got out, right? So my parents, by the grace of God, were able to get the $50,000 bond, which I think it's I forget how much it is. What it's like 10% of the bond and then some collateral to get them out. So if you didn't have $50,000 in hard cash, or if they didn't say it has to be hard cash, because when they make a bond, they can do a hard cash, or you can use a bondsman. The bondsman can put up, you put $5,000 down, and then you got to put some collateral worth $50,000 that if you run or don't show up to your court date, they own that. So by the grace of God, my parents put the $5,000 down, and they put their house up so I could get out of jail. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
They love you.
Love me, man. Love me. I don't take that for granted.
That's awesome.
Any day, man. So I got out of jail. First thing I wanted was like a burger, man, because I'm like, the food out there is, I didn't eat for 3 or 4 days. I didn't go to the bathroom for 3 or 4 days since I was there. So it was
Because the food was that bad?
Food was that bad, and I think my body was in complete shock, man.
Yeah.
So I didn't use the bathroom. Like, I swear it was like 5 days. I can't remember, man. It's such a blur. But so that all happened, and I'm like, man, my life is over. Because when she was reading me what charges has happened, she's like, charges like this typically is 3 to 5 years minimum in prison.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm 21 years old, and I'm gonna my life is over. I'm gonna be 26, 27 when I got out of prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was like the big thing on my mind and on my heart for a long time. I'm like, screw this. I closed all my bank accounts. I was drinking a lot. I was partying. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to prison. My life's over, man. You know what I mean? And so it was probably like 10 months, bro. From January,
What?
I was in limbo, trials and this and that, and trying to figure out what's going on. Da 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 da. Well, this is where the miracle comes in. They weren't releasing us the medical records of this guy. They weren't giving them to us. So my lawyer's like, guys, you gotta like release his medical records from the guy that I hit. Like, give us the info so we can figure this out, right? So 10 months go by. It's October. I want to say it was like October, mid-October. I don't know exactly what day. And I just remember my lawyer calling me, and she's like, hey, do you have a second? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, why don't you just sit down, you know? Like,
I've actually got 3 to 5 years. I got all the time you need.
It's like, yeah, thanks, man. That's probably what I should have said, but I'm like, okay. I'm in my head. I'm like, oh frick, dude, I'm going to prison.
It's
She's
time.
telling me it's it. So I sit down, and she's like, so we just got the medical records back from the man you hit, and he was on heroin and meth when you hit him.
Whoa!
And he has
you.
And he has a previous charge for an accident that he caused when he was on a motorcycle. And my heart just dropped, and everybody's like, lucky, just like you're saying right now. No offense. So I was like, that's not luck. That's literally
that's
a miracle and a hand of God on my life, because I could be in jail for life. If I would have killed this man, I would be in jail for life, man.
Yeah.
And so I was just like,
the odds,
what
man.
the frick?
What are
like,
the odds of that?
I remember just getting off the phone and just breaking down. I was like, I have no idea what is going on, what that means. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. So long story short, I was given the opportunity to go to prison for 3 years. And when I got out, I wouldn't have to have any felonies, or I could do a year in county jail and I would keep all the felonies.
Interesting.
So how we got to this point with this story, I got a F3 aggravated assault charge for hitting the dude. I got a F4 hit and run with death or injury. Big emphasis on injury, death or the or part, or death or injury, because some people think that I actually killed somebody, which is not true. That's not true.
So if they're looking at your felony
if you
record,
see it says death or injury.
Okay, so then they don't know.
They don't know.
Unless
it could be one or the other, yeah.
Oh, man.
So I got
That's annoying.
Got some amazing people that are like, he killed somebody. I'm like, I didn't kill anybody, bro. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't. So that's so I got that, and then I got a I got a felony DUI, and that was that. All right, You know what? I'm sorry. I only have 2 felonies. Let's be clear. 2 felonies, and then the DUI charge.
Okay. So the DUI charge was not a felony.
No.
But the hit and run was, and the aggravated assault was.
Because I used a deadly weapon, being the car.
It's interesting that they charge you for that.
Pretty wild.
They're probably just trying to stack up anything they can.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, for the longest time, I mean, this guy got a lot of money from our insurance company and from my parents. Because again, he was trying to hide the fact of what was really going on behind the scenes on his medical record documents, right?
Yeah.
And he got a lot of money out of my parents.
So how did they find out? Did they take his blood when he went to the
Yeah.
hospital?
Yeah, of course.
And they tested it,
Absolutely.
And then they found these drugs in his
They
system?
hit it. Like, we had to hire a second person to like go through, like an actual medical professional to go through like 300 pages of his medical documents to find on like the 286th page that his blood work and stuff was on there that they were trying to conceal from us for this last 10 months. Like, I was about to go to prison, bro. If we didn't find this.
So how long were you in jail?
So I did a year, and they gave me an option to do Tent City. So I did a year in Tent City.
So you wore the pink.
Misconception is Tent City, they have something called work furlough. So you can go to work for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you could wear your normal clothes to come back, and then you could go out. But you had to have a job. You assigned all your checks to the jail, and they would give you the remainder out of what they would take from it for you to live in work furlough.
Oh, weird.
So it was like, I want to say it was like $300 a week or so, I think it was like $600 every pay period, $650 every pay period.
So like every 2 weeks?
So every other week it was like $650 or something like that.
That you would actually get?
That I had to pay them.
Oh, you would pay them, then whatever was left over you get.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Pretty sure that's what it was. Might be
Okay.
$600 a month. Either way, it was, dude, it was, they made bank.
Yeah.
And it was based off of how much you made that they would take out a certain amount. And, you know, I was managing and serving at the time in restaurants. And so
Yeah.
I, thank God, was able to keep a lot of my cash, pay for a lot of it. And, yeah, dude, it was...
Wow,
It
man,
was-
that's
it was
crazy.
nuts.
So then when you're in jail for that year and you're going to work every day or 6 days a week or whatever, so
You couldn't go out holidays, so you had to stay in on holidays. So Christmas, Thanksgiving,
but you're in a
4th
cell,
of July.
right?
So we slept outside. Actually, it was
Oh.
the same tents that they used in the Vietnam War. They set up these steel beam frames, and they used the tenting that they used to use in the Vietnam War. So there was like I don't know, like 40 or 50 bunks, 2 rows of 40 or 50 bunks with one on top and one on bottom.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's probably like 80 to 100 of us in the tent.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we'd sleep outside. We just had a little fan on one end, each end of the tent.
Sounds like Iraq.
Yeah,
We had big tents like that. At least in Kuwait, when we were in Kuwait, we had big tents like that. We didn't have double stacked, but we'd set up cots. But we had like 4 rows of cots that slept probably 80 to 100 guys in one tent.
Yeah,
Just
probably.
giant tents.
Probably exactly that.
Probably same thing or same dimensions.
You could roll up the ends, you know, the sides and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so we did that. You know, saw a couple people die during the summer, and
From heat.
from heat exhaustion.
Wow.
A couple people die from freezing to death.
Really?
A couple people die from drug overdoses in jail, and
Wow.
yeah, probably saw a good handful of people pass. Man, it was pretty nuts.
Was there much violence there?
There was a good amount. You know, again, it's still political in there. You know, so there's still a lot of
the
people.
same cliques.
A lot of people with like child support, weren't paying child support, or got a DUI that had to do a couple days in there. So that was the thing. I was there for a year, and a lot of these people were a little more short term, right? Anywhere from 3 to 5 months, 30 days, 60 days. Like there's a plethora of short term. So it was wild. I'm in there and I see everybody and their mother come and go. You know what I mean? So it was nuts. But yes, there was heads. They call them heads of each race. You know, there's like the main, like the president, I guess you could say, right?
How did they get to that point?
Either you're there for the longest, you were nominated by your culture. You know, if you had been in prison or something before, they call them the OGs, and typically the OGs would be the ones who would be in charge. And, you know, it would kind of, you would either like take the role or you would ask for it, kind of thing. But you had to have some background. Like you had to be vetted. Like you had to have some background in you know, some really good, you know, criminal work. But yeah. And so I saw a couple of people, you know, get their ass kicked, light up, you know. A couple people they call them hot ones again when somebody does something bad, like they didn't like drugs on the yard, you know. And so if people brought drugs in from outside, everybody gets in trouble. You know, they had a thing called commissary where you get all your food. They had these snack machines and these soda machines, and that was like apart from what they served at 8 a.m. or 5 p.m., if you weren't there for that food, you better have eaten outside, like at your normal job or somewhere on the way in, or
You're not eating.
you're not eating if you get food from the commissary, right? So you can bring dollars in, like you can only bring $25 in quarters or dollars. Sometimes the quarter machine would work, sometimes the dollar machine would work. So it was like hit or miss, bro. It was like this like roulette of like, am I going to eat or am I going to drink something tonight? I don't know.
Oh man.
And so if people did anything wrong, you know, say they found drugs on the yard, or somebody got in a fight, or somebody got caught smoking a cigarette, because you're not allowed to smoke, right?
Oh.
They would lock commissary for everybody. So everybody would pay the piper.
Sounds like the army.
Boom. Literally, it's probably as close to like a concentration camp / army as you could probably get.
Yeah, it's funny how close those things are related.
Isn't it wild?
But with the military, at least in the army, they do group punishment. So if somebody messes up, everybody gets in trouble. I get it. It's to cultivate the team mentality and to keep each other in check.
Totally.
Yeah, kind of a self-policing.
Yeah, it definitely didn't keep everybody in check, man.
Oh no, it's no. Well, it is a little bit different. Yeah, but so if you're working at a restaurant during the day, you're a server, you're doing whatever, you have access to food, which is good because you can probably take some with you. You probably can't get it back in there?
No, you couldn't bring anything in.
So did they check you every time?
They checked you. Some of these people checked you, bro. It was, let me tell you what.
Sometimes
I'm like, I don't know, dude. This dude probably shouldn't be checking people, man.
Yeah.
He's
really
creeping me out, man. He's really checking
right
all the crevices and grooves of what I'm bringing in.
Yeah, it's like TSA on steroids.
Dude, it's like TSA had like a field day, bro.
Oh, gross. Oh, man. So then...
sick.
So then you said it's 12-hour work days?
Yeah.
So if do you have an ankle bracelet on?
No.
So they let you go.
They let you go, but I mean,
if
you don't come back, I mean, you got a warrant for your arrest.
For sure, yeah, but still, so they don't know where you're going.
No,
though.
they do. They would have people come, follow check on you.
Oh, really?
Call your employers.
So is that a probation officer? Or is that
probation officer.
Gotcha.
Depending on also the severity of your stuff.
Okay.
They would have like somebody watching you all the time or not.
Wow.
And you would have to have your job, would have to fill out these forms every week at the times that you were working.
Oh, man.
So it was like a big like compliance thing with your work that had to like be okay with it. And a lot of people would lose their jobs. And if you don't have a job, you can't be there. And where you're saying the pink outfits, they would go there. So where I was at was called contents. They had one called intense. And if you couldn't be in contents, you got sent to intense. And you lived outside and you wore pink and you didn't get to do anything that the content people got to do.
Wow.
So you literally like would work in the factories and work for free and do all this stuff. And you would live outside. So that was like the legit, like straight up wild punishment, dude.
Wow.
Nuts.
Right on.
Because you couldn't get anything. Yeah, wild. So that was wild. I did that for a year, man. Did that for a year of chaos, a year of insanity. And again, I think back, I'm like, how did I get through that? But I was really close with God at that point, and He definitely carried me through a extremely difficult place because there's a lot of times I'm like, man, I could just put me in real jail. Like, this is just not worth it because it was just such a mental, physical, just a battle. It was such a battle, man.
Especially during the summer, I bet.
Oh, dude, it was awful. It would be 125 degrees in our tent, man. Yeah. And then when you want to shower, the water would be like lukewarm. So it was like you wouldn't really get anything super great from it. You know what I mean? It was... It was pretty rough. You'd have to drink water out of this fountain, and God knows how long this plumbing had been going on. You could taste all the metal from it, and if you didn't have a bottle, good luck. You know what I mean? The water's lukewarm at best.
Did you shank anybody?
I didn't.
Did you make anybody hold your pocket?
I did not. No, that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
It's not a thing, huh?
Maybe in prison only, but I didn't see any of that.
You weren't holding somebody else's pocket and don't want to talk about it?
No, sir. No, sir.
Right on. That's cool.
But and then in winters, the showers would be like so hot it would burn your skin. Like your skin would turn red and like puff because it was so hot.
You can't adjust it at all.
You can't. No, I mean there were like these like silver bullet heads, so you'd have to ting 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 like kind of power it up, you like hit it a couple times for it to go, and then it would shut off. So you'd have to like keep hitting them.
So you're just hitting a button. You're not turning
hitting a button. No, it's not that nice, bro. Like, come
man.
on. So you're banging on this thing, ting 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 ting, and then keep going every 10-15 seconds. You got to keep hitting it.
Yeah, it's like Walmart bathrooms.
It's a freaking blaster, bro. So it's not like this nice shower just flowing. It's like a centered nozzle that just blasts you away, bro.
Oh, man.
Like it was the craziest thing I've ever seen, dude.
That sounds rough, man.
It was nuts. Just absolutely nuts. It'd be freezing in the winter, bro. It was like, I remember on Christmas it snowed. I'm like, thank you, God. Like, I'm so glad we're here. It's Christmas. Like, thank you for the snow. But it was freezing, bro. It was like, it was like 30 degrees out there because it's, like South Phoenix, out away from kind of a lot of stuff. It's all dirt and fields out in that area.
Yeah.
And, they would only give you 2 blankets. So like you didn't like 2 blankets. That's what you got. So when people would, get kicked out, they would leave.
Snatch the blankets.
You could kind of take their blankets, but then, some of the DOs would, think it's funny and they would take your stuff, man. So they'd leave you with 1 blanket, 2 blankets. And if they were closed and they didn't have any other blankets and you went, hey, somebody took my blankets, they're like, cool, sorry. So you'd have to catch them on a good day. It was literally like a mental F like just a straight mental game that you had to like prepare yourself for and play, because people would also freak out on these DOs and they'd get sent to intents. You know what I mean?
So, oh wow! So you'd have to keep yourself under control while they're screwing with you.
Because it was a mental game. It was like you're a rat in this game that they're playing. Like, granted, it's jail. It shouldn't be that great, right? It shouldn't be fun. But this was like another level. Like, where people would say, actually, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go to prison, or I want to go to jail instead.
Because prison's better.
Because it's better than what this place is.
Wow.
Like literally, it was to hear people say that. But then I'm like, yeah, they might be right, man. Like, if I didn't want to have my freedom and have my job, I would have probably easily said, I'll go to prison, bro.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, send me out there. You know what I mean?
So then, so you have the felony charges, and you mentioned something about getting them expunged, right?
Yeah.
You can file something.
You can, and again, I keep saying this, by the grace of God, man. I hit I think it's 7 years after your charges, so I hit that point already. I'm actually just waiting back from the courts to give me my rights back. Lord willing,
So is it a sure thing, or they could deny it, or?
I don't know. I think it could be a sure thing. I really don't know. I think, yes, they could, but I mean, I think that the length of time where I'm at, you know, my contribution to my community and society, and, you know, like, you know, I pay my taxes, I work, you know, I'm involved in in
so
everything.
So if you're doing a bunch of other stuff and you've had tickets and all this
crap, and I haven't been in trouble,
they
you
might
know what I
deny
mean?
it.
So,
but generally, if you're playing ball
like a normal person,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
They'll give it back.
Which a lot of normal people just don't get caught. Right?
Yeah, I didn't know that you could, like. Well, I thought once you're a felon, that was it. You couldn't have
Thank
a gun
God,
forever.
No.
You couldn't vote, but they're giving you the ability to buy.
So
buy a gun,
I think you
vote.
you can vote and get those things back, and then I think the right to get your right to bear arms back is another one. So I think they're two separates. I mean, I obviously put for both. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy guns, you know. So as a kid, I grew up shooting guns, and you know, I always enjoyed that. So I pray that we'll find out here, by the grace of God, that I can get some, that I can get my voting rights back, that I can get my gun rights back, because I definitely want all that.
Oh yeah, that'd be hard not to have that stuff. It must have been tough.
Tough to say the least. Nuts, man.
Yeah.
What a challenge, you know.
yeah.
But it's definitely made me who I am today.
So since then, what have you been doing for work, and has it been difficult to get work with those charges?
Oh, bro, it's been it's crazy. It's crazy. People take so much for granted of what the abilities that they have, right? Which I take full responsibility. Like, dude, I made a terrible decision. I decided to get blacked out and drive a car. And, you know, unfortunately, I put myself in a position to damage myself and others. And I did, you know what I mean? So, the effects of what that has entailed has kept me from a lot of opportunity with jobs. Jobs that I've gone to second, third rounds for, you know, huge companies, and that I had to pass an FBI background check, and that opted me out immediately from the position. And I'm just like, wow, okay, you know, housing, you know, couldn't get an apartment, can't get, I mean,
really
nothing, bro.
Wow.
Like you, if you're a felon, you are limited, and that's why they're like, well, once you're in the system, you're going to go back in the system.
Yeah,
I realize what that means.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize what that means, because it's not just a thing of like, oh, well, this person made a poor choice, you know, hurt somebody, or, you know, he, you know, domestic violence, or whatever it is, aggravated assault, whatever it is. There is the battle, again, just like I'm talking about when I was in jail, like there's a mental battle that occurs because you're limited to what you can do. I mean, you can't get a job. You can't, you know, a lot of jobs will check for that, and that opts you out. Being able to vote, I mean, carry a gun's not the end of the world, right? I mean, like, you probably got there for some reason with it. Some people do. So it like sets you back. It's like another mental game you got to play living in society. Like, I had to live with roommates. I've had to live with roommates my whole life because I'm like, I can't, get
your own place,
get my own place, and, financing, obviously with that, paying off all this stuff. I mean, lawyers, and after all that, I mean, it's like $30,000, that you have to pay over such a long period of time. I mean, that's not, for what I was doing, but, I was working in restaurants. I was completely blessed with the gift to manage restaurants, and, some of the restaurant companies that I was working with, in restaurants, obviously it's a little more lax, people getting DUIs, because obviously being in the industry, people are drinking, people are driving, and a lot of people in the industry get DUIs.
Yeah.
Go figure, who'd have thought, right? Behind a bar, how are you you're gonna drive? Yeah. So, that helped a lot, having my experience be in that realm, and I was able to kind of, grow on the ladder of into management, assistant manager to general managing. I worked with like Fox Restaurant Concepts. Same, I was blessed to be able to have an opportunity to work with them given my circumstances. And, I did some restaurant consulting as well. So it all kind of had to be in that kind of realm. Obviously that's where my expertise lied.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until kind of COVID hit that I was like, I got to get out of this. The lifestyle of that is difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult to keep up with the drinking and just the partying, and I was running nightclubs, so it's just difficult. It's hard to keep the lines drawn between that. You start to become your what you surround yourself with is what you will become, 100%, totally. And so it sucked you in, it's like a vortex. It just drags you in, man. And so I had to get out of that. And again, I just was just blessed with everything that I learned there, learning marketing tools, with just building customer basis, and things that I didn't think about, building a target audience with our restaurants and different categories of events that we had, and sports and this and that and that. It was basically a form of marketing, and I fell in love with marketing and social media aspect and graphic design and video.
Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah,
for work.
I do. I'm a marketing manager for a real estate investment company, and so I have. I manage a couple people as well, graphic designer, web development team. And, I kind of do a lot of the organization and a lot of building of strategies and, being able to track metrics. And I mean, you name it, I've learned so much in this realm. And again, just been blessed to be able to have that in my tool belt and step into a different career path. And I've been just so blessed. And with getting my rights back, and going to make some offers on a home, in the next couple of weeks. So
awesome.
Just wild to see it all, just all the lessons I've learned and everything kind of coming to fruition as far as my dedication to my belief and dedication to walking a straight path. And
have you ever had a time where you didn't believe what you believe?
Absolutely.
What was that? How long did that last?
I stop and think, and I really sometimes feel like it's almost my whole life. You know what I mean? I always knew who God was, but I never had a relationship with him. I knew who God was. I knew what I learned at church. I knew what I grew up being told, and this and that, and Sundays and the Wednesdays, and I think a lot of my life, I think there was a disbelief or a unbelief that there is a God, or that God cared for me, or that God was watching out for me. Even with all these miracles and all these things that happened in my life, right? I think a lot of the time we personify who God is, that he's supposed to be this perfect person, and he's supposed to take care of me, and I believed in you, and how could this happen to me if that's the case?
You know what I mean? Bad stuff shouldn't happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And same like I talked about my grandparents earlier, like they were the most loving, God-fearing people. Like, how could I trust a God that allowed him to take my grandparents back to back? You know what I mean? And so I think I battled that for a long time. You know what I mean? I don't think that I do anymore, but I think that is a case of not understanding who God really is. You know, a lot of people, you know, you can read scripture, but until you can actually like understand who God is and what he actually means to us, you know, or what he can actually fulfill that we can't, right? Because I think for my life, I try to fulfill myself. I try to do it my way, right? And every time I started doing it my way, things are, or I was praising him and I was following his word, and then I started to, you know, I got this. You know, it's that confidence that starts to...
It seeps its way in.
It seeps its way in,
Yeah.
right? You know, and you're like, I can do this on my own.
Yeah,
and it takes
pride.
You back. The pride, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, you said it earlier in the beginning when you were saying about curse words and the posture, or you said the position of your heart. Yeah. And I think for me, something has been really heavy is the posture of my heart, right, towards God and who he is. I've been reading this book, Fathered by God. It's an amazing book, and it's really, I think, finally opened my eyes to who God really is to me, right? We always think of him as this, we got to fear God, be scared of him. You know, he's up there, you know, he's the one, like, you just got to be careful.
Yeah, there's that part that sticks out, I think, in a lot of Christians of our generation, that like, well, if you don't do it his way, you're going to go to hell. Mm-hmm. So that's an unfortunate perspective
totally
of the modern church. And I think it's more about grace than it is about, you know.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Right there. Grace, right? And not only just grace, but I think a lot of time we say, dear God, you know, we're talking to somebody above us who, you know, we must succumb to.
Yeah.
And I think something that I've finally realized is the posture of where my heart is with who God is, that he is actually my father.
Yeah. He's
not that person that I have to be scared of. He's actually my father. You know, he calls us to be, you know, when we accept Christ into our lives, we become innocent, right? We become childlike. And I think that's the big thing. I think you were talking this on your show, maybe one of the couple episodes back, where you were talking about kids and, you know, being a child and how, you know, everything was just fun and it was just like you had no worries and you had no cares. But because you had that innocence, you had that childlike innocence, right? Where you didn't know like what was bad. I mean, you know, it was wrong and right, but you know, you weren't like actively like, I'm going to do this because it's bad.
Yeah, it's the purity of their expression.
Purity of the expression, 100%. And so I think that really kind of brought me to really understanding what I think I have been missing, that it's not just this yes, he is all powerful, but then not something that I have to be afraid of and scared of. And thank you, God.
Well, that's part of what modern Christianity, that's confusing, because they describe him as this, then they describe him as that, and then they say, well, you have to adapt to this. But those things seem to be kind of what's the word? Where those meanings butt heads with each other, because he says, okay, well, God's the Father, and he's here to teach you and to help you and to love you and to give you grace. And then there's also like, okay,
contradict.
Contradict is the word.
Sorry, I've been thinking about it since you said it. I know it starts with a C. Contract.
So it seems to contradict itself when he's described this way, then he's described that way, and there's an element of fear in that, of like, okay, well, you should fear God. Okay, well, maybe we shouldn't use that word, because I think that word is convoluted, because generally what fear means is to be afraid. So if you're trying to say fear means respect, then maybe we should say respect God and understand that he has authority in power, but not authority in like oppressive power.
Sure.
Because if
you said
it's so easy to misinterpret that stuff and to think, oh, well, God's gonna get me if I don't do this.
And I think what, so I agree and I disagree when you say we don't need to fear God, because I feel like I fear God, but my fear is not a fear of I'm afraid of him. I'm more of I respect him, like you're saying. I respect him because I know that his judgment is going to be powerful on my life, right? I know that, and it's not a judgment of like he's going to condemn me, because he's not going to condemn us, but he's going to discipline us, right?
Yeah,
he's going to discipline us with love and grace and mercy.
Really good distinction.
And I think that when you say fear, I get that, but I think people's perception of what fear is, and I think the church does a terrible job of describing fear in fearing God, because people are like, well, why should I fear somebody? I'm like, there's a difference between a scared fear and a honorable, respective fear, which I have for God in my life. Because I mean, even just my seasons of my life, in one of these seasons, it's a, you know, it's not something that God is condemning me for the things I've done or decisions that I've made on my own.
Disciplining.
It's a discipline. It's a discipline with love.
So there's the different types of fear. So you got the fear that keeps you alive, like the fear of drowning, or the fear of fire, or the fear of getting eaten by a lion.
Big fire guy.
And then there's the fear that's like, okay, I'm actually afraid of that, like a demon, or like being kidnapped, or something like that, being murdered. So I guess those are two different types of fear. The survival type of fear, it's like a healthy fear. So this is here to keep me alive. And then the fear that is consuming and takes, I don't know how to describe it. It's consuming is what I think, but
consuming.
But yeah, it's not the fear of God that they're trying to convey is not a consuming fear. It's a healthy fear because of what you said with the judgment. Yeah. Because God is going to judge us all.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that's, you know, again, I think I realized that I really despised authority. I really despise authority. Not only just because of what had happened to my grandparents. I know that was a big stem of where that started to first occur, right? That hatred and that anger towards God of like, how could you do this to me? You know, like I believed in you, and you're gonna let this happen to me. And so I always say this. It's like, you know, God never changes. Our circumstances do. You know what I mean? God stays the same forever and always, and will always, but our circumstances change, and then our perceptions change of who God really means to us or who he is, because we think that these things are happening to us because because we did something wrong, or because, you know, he's not real, when in reality it's just, this is also the way of life. This is how things go.
Yeah, and that thing you mentioned earlier about like, oh, you think you can do it better? Why aren't you doing a podcast, or why aren't you making music? So it's like, well, when we tell God, hey, I'm mad at you because you let these circumstances change, that's pride again. That's, well, we think we can do it better. Oh, I think you think you could live your whole life without, you know, negative emotions. Yeah, good luck.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that whole thing, and just succumbing. And again, I go back to the posture of the heart of the full surrender of, I'm literally nothing without Christ. And I had this thing that I wrote down, and
so it's like respect for authority rather than fear of punishment.
That's good. That is really good. It was you can do nothing of eternal value outside of God. And so it was just something that I was like,
that's a good one.
What am I doing outside of living for Christ?
So this brings us back to the music.
Yeah.
And that's your passionate pursuit for God and for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. It's about how I relate to music too. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I think just and not just for music, but whoever has, passions, because everybody's passion is different, and it might not always be music, but it could be how they express themselves. But I think the bigger picture is how we glorify God with the gifts, unique gifts that we have each been given, because each one of us have been given a unique gift, whether people like to think or not.
Yeah.
And it may not be as big as music. It might not be as big as dance or the visual arts, right? But there's even just serving people. So I think just finding that passion and that power that God calls us to is one of the big things. And again, just the surrender, because a lot of people like to pick and choose which parts, which parts of the Bible they like to believe, or which parts of the Bible affect them most, or will have the most value to their lives.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, same thing. The authority is like, well, I like all of it, but I don't like to kind of be told what to do.
Exactly,
Or some people it's so,
that's that thing,
the
I
sex
think.
portion, or maybe it's the drugs and alcohol portion, or, there's always these underlying, like, well, everything but this. And so it's like, okay, well, the full surrender. You're either surrendered or you're not.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, just like it says in the Bible, God spews out the lukewarm from his mouth. You're either hot or cold. So it's like, if you're going to be one or the other, there's no in between, bro, So it's a difficult concept because, again, just like being vulnerable, with making the footprint of your soul with music.
Yeah.
It's
the fingerprint. Yeah.
Fingerprints. I keep saying footprint.
Yeah.
Fingerprint there's also vulnerability to your life, which is even more powerful than any fingerprint.
Surrendering to God. It's like saying, okay, well, I'm putting it's the Carrie Underwood. We call it the Carrie Underwood effect. It's Jesus take the wheel.
Jesus take the wheel. Yeah, good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's good stuff.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy. I always say that.
Such a super heavy guy.
Super heavy. Big heavy guy.
Big heavy. That's what it is. Big heavy guy. Right on, man. Well, unless you got anything else to share, I think.
No, I think the clock blew up while we were talking, man, and didn't realize it's like 5-hour podcast. You're gonna have to cut it down to like 2 or 1.
It might be 2.5. We'll find out.
Wild. No, man, I really appreciate it.
Final question: do you have a goal for yourself as far as completing the song that you're working on? A timeline?
I don't really have a crazy timeline on it. I'm kind of just I've just been praying about it as well, and just kind of a lot of stuff happening in my life outside of music, so just really just waiting on him, and just praying that he just speaks to me in a sense of when things need to be done, when things can get done. So I would like to say in the next few months, 3 or 4 months, I got some big things happening outside of music too. So
no timeline.
No timeline. Just
timing.
when God's timing, man.
Okay. Right on, man. Well, thanks for doing this, Ruben. I appreciate it.
Dude, thank you, Andy. It's great, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's been
great to be coming to your crib, coming to Prescott out here. It's fantastic, man. And thanks so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
And as always, every episode is made possible for you by my friend, United States Marine James Moats.
You can do nothing of eternal value outside of God.